so today we're gonna do a strength session. I'm gonna work on sumo deadlift. I've been working on sumo deadlift for the past 3 or 4 weeks. This will be the second to last week that I do it before I change up my pull movement for strength. But warmed up with Tabata, assault bike or echo bike calories. Something I've been doing for the past couple weeks. I do the Tabata 8 rounds, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off of echo bike or assault calories just to warm up. And I started at like trying to hold 72 or 73 RPMs. And then every week I'll go up by 1 more RPM. So every time I come in here, it's the first thing I do to warm up. And I like to do it just straight cold. Like kind of blast yourself a little bit when you're maybe like quote unquote not prepared for it. See how your body reacts. And so by like the third round, the third set of 20 seconds, I can start to feel everything kind of catch up. Really start getting out of breath, muscles really start to burn. Through the 6th round are all pretty painful. And then the last 2 you kind of have adjusted at that point. And by the time I get off, I got blood flowing, I got a little sweat going, and I feel good. So I think today I'm up to 76 RPMs now is what I'm trying to hold. And so next week will be 77 RPMs and 78, and we'll just try to keep going until there's some kind of drop off there. But after that, right now, I like to foam roll a little bit before I lift. So if you've been sitting at a desk all day, if you've been, doing whatever at work, coming in foam rolling, kind of loosening up the muscles a little bit. Always feels good to me if things have kind of been jammed in one position. You can kind of roll them out a little bit, feel good and loosened up. Upper back for sure before I deadlift. Same with lower back. I want everything feeling good back there in terms of being able to brace by lifting my chest with my spinal erectors, and then same thing with squeezing and maintaining that little bit of shoulder pinch when I pull off the ground. So all this stuff helps just loosen up and get ready to pull some heavy weight. All right, so when I warm up as well, I like to do a lot of dynamic movements in my warm up. I don't do a lot of static stretching. If I'm going to static stretch, maybe I feel like I need it or something just feels a little bit tight and I just kind of want to loosen it up a little bit more, I won't hold the stretches for more than 30 seconds. So typically I save static stretching towards the end of the workout or before I go to bed or maybe right when I wake up in the morning, but not something that I'm doing right around when I do a heavy lift. Again, there's more like research behind that as to why you should do more dynamic movements and kind of movement patterns unloaded as you're warming up to prep for your actual movement. So this one right here will be a good example. I'm still going to be able to stretch out my hamstrings. I'm going to be able to activate my glutes a little bit. I've got my feet out at the wider than actually sumo stance, but way wider than my shoulders. And this is just I call it sumo reach. And so I'm going to reach down, keep my legs straight, maybe slightly bent, try to touch in between my legs. I'm feeling the stretch here, my hamstrings. Keep my chest nice and tall, and as I stand, I'm gonna crank and squeeze my butt like you're trying to pinch a penny with your butt to push hips through to the top. I'm just gonna repeat that 20 times.
You gotta figure out what I am. Backing out, I'm blacking out, I'm backing out, the wretched out. Cat is out, back in the back of the back of the hack, and I smash him out. Better have a gasket out when them dudes start clapping out. Although I never shot nobody, this is what I rap about. Gangster, but don't know the definition. Never was sent to prison and lie in my composition. Rapping about my spitting, but wouldn't shoot with a mask on if I was the tooth guard on the distance. Rip shit, get it? You hate it, but they fake it till I make it real. That's what my chains heavy.
Second set. Set of 10. I'm gonna do 3 sets of 10 as kind of warm-up sets, and then 3 sets of 3. Last set will be max reps at 90%, right around 90%. Wrapped up my last set, supposed to be 3 reps or more at 455, and I ended up getting 7. So that probably tells me my max is a little bit higher than what I'm projected off of or what I'm using right now. Again, it's not a super good measurement. Basically, I probably want to get like similar max reps at different percentages and then kind of average it. If I'm over on every single one, like if I'm over 5 reps at a certain percentage, over 3 reps or 4 reps at a certain percentage, over 1 rep at a certain percentage, then it's time to talk about, okay, let's average those numbers and kind of get a projection from that, not just from one set or one lift, right? So let's say 7 today at 455. On the internet, there's hundreds of different equations you could probably type in. Hey, I did 7 reps at 455. It'll spit out what your projected 1 rep max is. And that's not a very good scale. One, if you didn't lift it, you didn't lift it, right? Just because some math equation says you lifted it doesn't mean that it's your 1 rep max. You actually have to lift it for it to be your 1 rep max. Number 2, if you are gonna use a projection, like I said, use a series of them. So if I did, this is 455, let's say I did 400 for 10 or 12. Okay, I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna use what I did at 455. I'm gonna use what I did at, or will do at 475, 485. See what all those projections are for those different weights and rep schemes, and then average that. That'll probably give you a better example or prediction of what your potential 1 rep max is. But still doesn't count unless you lifted it. So make sure you at least go for that 1 rep max at what that projection is at some point. So I've had a couple questions come through at some point because I've been doing sumo for a couple months. Why train sumo? Why aren't you doing conventional deadlift? And more or less, if you lift one specific movement for more than 3 weeks, typically your body's gonna like hit a stall point or like an adaptation wall, basically, where you have to change something up to make the movement a little more difficult or to change the stimulus. So typically after about 3 weeks, I'll change the movement up. So I'm still pulling from the floor, but I'm using a different muscle group. It's off of a different PR. So the 1 rep max is either lower or higher, so the strain on the body is a little bit different. And the sumo stance is a great example for either the squat or the deadlift. So in the squat, or excuse me, in the deadlift, like we did here today, once you get your feet outside of your shoulder width, like that, you're able to bring your torso up a little bit more upright. And what you're gonna find as you start to pull the bar off the floor is you're gonna have to use a lot more of your glutes and hamstrings than just your spinal erectors or even a little bit of your quads when you're locking out at the top of the deadlift. So I find that my posterior chain gets lit up a whole lot more when I use the wide stance deadlift or sumo deadlift. And it's just a different way to train muscles that you're not using in a conventional deadlift. So if you train sumo, let's say you start at a 300-pound max, you train sumo for 3 weeks, at the end of the 3 weeks, you bump up to 350, 400 pounds, whatever, you make some big PR, I can guarantee you when you go back to the conventional deadlift, you're gonna find some kind of gain or benefit there, even though you haven't been touching that movement for 3 weeks, right? So training different muscle groups, more adaptation or a different adaptation that the body's gonna gain from doing that movement properly. So that's why I train sumo. So finishing up with some accessory movements, mostly for just your posterior chain. Since we did the heavy movement with the posterior chain, strength lift the posterior chain, we're gonna do accessories with posterior chain. So I'm doing front rack lunges, not actually walking with them, stepping forward and then stepping back, and then supersetting that with reverse hypers. So a heavier reverse hyper, looking at about 20 reps for the reverse hyper, and 10 reps total, 5 on each leg for the lunges. I'm gonna go through 3 or 4 rounds. We'll see kind of how I'm feeling right now. Hamstrings are a little bit tight with about 90 seconds to 2 minutes rest in between each set. That's the end of the strength session today. Hope you guys like it. If you got questions, throw them down in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe. I know that you need to see a day of full eating. That's coming to you. We're gonna get that done as soon as possible. But if there's anything else you wanna see, questions you have, throw them down in the comments, and we'll get them answered and get videos out for you.